Hello and welcome to Mediumship Matters with me, Hannah McIntyre. How are you doing? So as promised, we are going to delve back into some of the episodes, listen to your comments. This might end up going over 2 episodes. What can you do? I might do 2 small, more manageable episodes than 1 large. I might just keep on yabbing. You never know how it's going to rock up and be. But I thought that I would start today with a story from somebody who wants to remain anonymous. So check this out.
Hannah, I'm just responding to your red flag request that you made on Instagram about spiritual teachers and mediums, and I'd just like to give you my experience. If you could keep me anonymous and do any voice changing that you need to do, that would be much appreciated. So, about 2-3 years ago, I began my spiritual journey, and I, perhaps 2 years ago, found a local spiritualist church near where I live. And there was an amazing lady there who was well renowned for her spiritual techniques, her mediumship skills and things like that. And she offered courses. I went to my first course with her and it was very, very informative, lots of kind of evidential based practice. Really did kind of give me a firm foundation for my spiritual journey and beliefs and faith. What was strange is that I always had a little bit of a gut feeling about her that something was off, but everyone else just seemed to really, really kiss her ass, so I kind of put it to one side and put it down to my naivety and perhaps that I'm not overly, not quite there yet with my spiritualism. So I signed up for more courses, bearing in mind that these do cost a fee each time. And the next one, the gut feeling was back a little bit more, but I think I noticed that she noticed in me that I perhaps wasn't as confident or as kiss-ass as I was initially with her. So she made a real kind of beeline for me. And again, seemed to give some quite good evidence-based sort of feedback to me, which kept the interest going. Now, I'm not saying that this person doesn't have good mediumship skills, because I think there's definitely something there. But the key for me is when she kind of pressured me into building up my spiritual skills and joining her classes that were online based. Now, I signed up for these again at a fee, and each time my gut just went that little bit more in that kind of way of thinking that I'm not convinced here that this person is completely legit. I think, again, she has some gifts, absolutely. But what hit me, and which was the major, major red flag, is that I was told if I did not continue on my path with her, on my course, pay money every week, that spirit would remove itself from me. Now, I was devastated because I was trying hard, I had some good experiences, but to be told that spirit would remove itself from me, I knew my gut instinct was right, because spirit would never remove itself from me, ever. I know that. I know that to my core. And somebody that just wants money from me and then bullies you into continuing to pay that money because I'm essentially buying spirit's, attention, was a big red flag. So that is my experience. It set me back. It gave me a few knocks. I did actually turn to an online forum, and a lot of people had experienced similar things, and I did gain a lot of reassurance. And in some ways, I found it better on my own journey because I could pick and choose what I do, and I do a lot of self-practice and find other things and other people such as yourself, Hannah. I was introduced to you because of this situation. I was recommended to follow you on Instagram, and I find you very, very enlightening, a lovely, decent person, and I don't get the bad tummy vibe with you, which is saying something. So thank you for hearing my story. Unfortunately, there are people out there that will use spirit in not very nice ways, but luckily I've come out the other end a bigger, better and stronger person for it. Thanks for listening.
I'm so glad you don't get the bad tummy when you watch my content, listen to my poddy, and thank you so much for sharing your story. I think this was a really important one to bring up because it's one that I have seen other students of mine experience. One of my friends, when we were developing, she learnt healing through a church, but was told if she didn't keep up an annual fee to the church, spirit would take away her healing abilities. And when you say it out loud, you can't really believe that people have the audacity to say these things, can you? But they do, and they will. So if you've ever been told anything like that, please reconcile it with the spirit world that we know and love. Spirit are there for you. Spirit will teach you. Spirit will not strip you of all of your abilities and everything you've learnt purely from a money perspective. And I just think that is so crucial to talk about. Another message that I got is from Aaron, and Aaron says, I have one for mediumship manners and I don't know if it will help. It's one for trance mediums, and it's that racist accents are never okay, even if they are working with spirit, inverted comma. Full disclosure, I think this medium was nuts. I went to my local spiritualist church. It's a very rundown place and has a very odd community. I never expect great things, but I've had one good reading there out of about 20. I should stop going, really. I just found out I was sick and about to turn away from all aspects of spirituality and return to atheism. I'd lost all faith. My mum and aunt took me to see a medium. Maybe someone would come through. It was the worst demonstration I've ever seen, and even to this day causes me the most doubt. A medium, in inverted commas, I have no doubt in my mind this person was either a fraud or crazy, stood at the front of the hall and explained how her trance works. Her spirit helper comes through and talks through her. She then got into character, and then it began. The worst, most offensively stereotypical Italian accent came out as this spirit. Began to explain she was some sort of nun or religious figure and started giving readings to the audience. Every single spirit was a grandmother. Every single piece of evidence seemed to be based on obvious cold reading. She brought through my grandmother whilst doing this horribly offensive accent. Not a single piece of evidence could be taken by me. It was like getting a reading from a Mario brother. If I'd had more strength in my legs at the time and didn't need someone with me when I was walking, I'd have got up and left. Then it got worse. She sensed another spirit. They had to come through. We had a good 15 minutes of the worst Irish accent I've ever heard, with every stereotypical catchphrase and saying things such as top of the morning and up for the crake. If any crake, crack. See, I'm so southern. Up for the crack, crake, crack. Sorry, Irish people. If anyone had been Irish or Italian in the audience, I think she would have been attacked. I, to this day, do not trust trance mediumship. I still have huge trust issues due to this reading and have not been to a public demonstration. It's one of the reasons I think I don't want to develop is due to being like them. It's really put me off. So I'd say that's my biggest bad manners moment. Trance mediums should not be doing accents, especially if they're overly offensive. I don't know if this helps, but I had to share. It's funny because I'm trying to get the podcast season 5 all tied up. So that's been my project for today. So I've just recorded Physical Fakery before this one. And obviously in Physical Fakery, I am talking about the trance medium I went to see, where they had nothing for me except for, did you know you could be a medium if you wanted to, when I was already working as a medium. And they didn't do accents, but they did do the child voice at one point, which made a little part of me die inside. So I totally get it. And you know, this is what started me off with the it's a collaboration, because I do believe in trance. And I guess that I'm lucky, Aaron, in the sense that I have seen some incredible things with trance. But again, the incredible things I've seen in trance come from when we are playing, not when we are performing. And there's something about that I feel spirit are really, they keep turning me back to. As soon as you demand, whether it's demanding from spirit or just demanding from your own abilities, I think you get in your own way. But I also have to say that I know when I first started talking about trance, I upset a lot of people. And I had a lot of messages from people. And I understand that if you've dedicated, many years of your life to that form of mediumship, this can be terribly upsetting. But I also think somebody needs to say what Aaron and I are saying, which is do better. Think about what you're doing. I watched Meet Joe Black again for the, fourth time, but for the first time in about 20 years the other day. And as you will remember if you've watched it, he puts on I want to say Jamaican, it might not be Jamaican, but he puts on an accent when he's speaking to a black lady in the hospital. And even that scene, because we've moved on so much societally since that was filmed, made me really uncomfortable. And I was trying to work out whether it was necessary for the story for him. Because I think anyway, but that's beside the point. I'm getting all political. But I don't know. That made me uncomfortable. I can only imagine what it is like when a trance medium's doing it. And why does spirit need to do that? Because they're using your voice box. It's not spirit speaking their voice box. It's you speaking the inspiration, the information from spirit. I'm definitely posher when my trance guide comes through, but certainly not. It's a Mario. God. Yeah, I know. And this is the thing, I know that people are getting upset with me for questioning things. And I do believe that there is a space that is necessary for faith. But I also think when you have got someone, and like you, Aaron, like you've said in that message, who is trying to cling on to their faith, trying to find their faith. If you've got somebody that's in that position, this is so damaging. This is so bad. We cannot do these things and get away with it. We need to be held accountable. And yes, I think that's a teacher thing, but it's also a person thing. There seems to be a massive avoidance of integration, which is the most important part of your mediumship. It's not learning to communicate with spirit. It's sitting with that connection. It's looking at the readings that you've done. What could you have done better? Where did you handle that badly? Where did you let your awkwardness get the better of you? Where did you do things for ego and not for spirit? Where could you have trusted more? Where could you have had a leap of faith more? And where could you have delivered things better? And without that analysis, you will never be the well-rounded medium that you want to be. Simple as. So thank you so much for sharing that, Aaron. I really do appreciate it.
Hi, Hannah. I am listening to your Red Flags episode, and actually, I've listened to all your episodes since the beginning. You are just someone who is allowing people to form their own beliefs about spirituality and about mediumship and encouraging people to go within. And I love that. I love how you are changing the way that people understand spirituality. And so thank you. I'm on a walk, so I apologize if I'm sounding out of breath. My biggest red flag in mediumship is when mediums tell their sitter that their loved one's soul is stuck. There is nothing more that irritates me or makes kind of my blood boil a little bit, because it's a belief. Because that medium was taught by their teacher, that souls can be stuck. And it's just not true. And I love how you talk about this, because it is so important. Okay, well, if I'm in a reading and you tell me my husband's soul is stuck, how can you show me that my husband's soul is stuck? Are you stuck? Is it the medium who's stuck? Most likely. I have been practicing mediumship since 2018, and I became a, quote unquote, professional. So I was getting paid for my readings beginning 2021. And mediumship has completely changed my life because it taught me connection. It taught me connection with myself, with the physical world, with the spirit world, and it taught me my connection with Source, with God. And I really struggled with the word God for many, many, many years. And it's interesting because all paths are leading me a different direction to what I know I need to be doing. And so I have stopped giving readings as a professional. I mean, I don't think I'll ever permanently stop. I know when people come into my path, then that's when I need to do a reading. But I just found within these last 3 years that so many people were coming to me for answers. And I wasn't comfortable giving the answers they wanted to hear. And it's people like you, and also people like me, who are empowering the living to go within and find your own answers. And I know that there are some amazing, legit mediums like yourself who are just proving to the living that our loved ones are always with us. That's what you need to know. That's what you need to understand. Now bring them back into your life. Anyway, I just love you. I love who you are. And maybe one day you and I can have a little spiritual conversation together. I'd love that. Okay, sending you so much love on this beautiful Sunday afternoon on April 14th. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Miranda, for getting in touch. And I know we're going to hear from you again later because you've sent another email in. But thank you for sharing that. Absolutely. I do think it's a bit like telling people they've got the ability to be a medium. I understand that sometimes that can be necessary. Like, it can be important for people maybe to have the need acknowledged that they believe their loved ones might be stuck and tell them that isn't true. But I just think it's one of those things that people get in the habit of saying without really thinking about the impact of it, without really thinking of what you're leaving somebody with. Now, I don't believe that spirits get stuck here. I believe that it's easier to be in spirit than it is to hold on to the physicality that we're in. The natural state is spirit, but it sounds impressive when you say it in front of an audience, doesn't it? So yeah, I'm really, really glad that you sent in that voice note. Thank you very much. Sounded like your walk was arduous. I think you might have been going uphill, Miranda. And it was great to hear from you. Thank you. Next up, I have an email from Amanda, and Amanda says, "Hi, I've maybe mentioned this before and may not be relevant, but I once got a message to tell them their parrot is horny." Oh my God. I was reading tarot at the time and not sure why this was popping into my head. I thought, I can't say that, but it bubbled out of my mouth. To my relief, the girl said, "Oh, I'm so pleased that's all it is, as I thought they were sick." I didn't even know they had a parrot, but what a relief that they had. So basically, saucy messages from the other side sometimes throw me. And as you know, Amanda, I've had saucy messages from the other side. They make me deeply uncomfortable, but if the message is what the message is, you've got to give it. The other bugbear is giving a reading, then hear the person tell it back to someone else, and it's nothing like the message I gave them. They have interpreted it in a totally different way that bears no relevance to what I told them. It's funny, isn't it, how we receive things through our filters. What really annoys me is people saying, "You didn't see that coming." Sometimes you don't, but you aren't meant to know everything, otherwise it would drive you insane. And sometimes you did see it coming. There's nothing you could do about it, so you didn't say anything. I tell you what, on that note, Amanda, when you write a book called You Are a Medium, the sheer volume of people writing, "I'm not, I'm a large," on my Facebook page is making me want to assimilate into the spirit world sooner than I would otherwise. The first 50 times I went, "Oh, okay, yeah." You know, now we're at a few hundred deep. I just can't. So yeah, I didn't see that coming. You are a medium. I'm not, I'm a large. And just tell me the lottery numbers then. Really make me just move into my happy space. Amanda's still going. People sticking their palm in your face at inopportune moments, going, "Read my palm, read my palm." You read palms, don't you? Read mine. Yes. Would you like to make an appointment? Basically having people's hands shoved in your face. That's the same as people saying to me, "Is there anyone with me right now?" And I go, "Probably, but I'm not looking." That always vexes them. Boundaries. Too much alcohol at a group reading or sitting, and then they get too rowdy. I don't like it when a group goes overboard or tries to offer me food and alcohol multiple times. When I say no once, please believe me. I tell them, "No, you won't get as good a reading if I drink." Inner thought, I'll not dress up my reading appropriately if I have alcohol, and might tell you far too straight and to the point, and you won't like it if I imbibe myself, and I might have too much fun and you won't. Alcohol is an ongoing problem, and I know that my American listeners cannot believe that people drink at mediumship demonstrations, but quite a lot of people drink at mediumship demonstrations in the UK. It's okay. I don't mind because I want a party vibe. But there's party vibe, and then there's you think you're talking really quietly and you're not. You're being quite disruptive. You're in and out for a cigarette or the toilet. I mean, those ones. I always think that's such a charming space to hold for other people. Listen to enough evidence until you believe it's not for you, then get up and go for a cigarette and interrupt somebody else's reading. Big thumbs down for me. So Amanda's mediumship manners were all aimed at clients, weren't they? And people, which I think is quite interesting. We didn't really talk about manners required from sitters. But as you know, if you've listened to this podcast, don't worry, I'm not kicking off again. You've all heard it 100 times.
Hi, Hannah. Juan from New York City. I just finished listening to your Mediumship Manners podcast episode, and I kept saying in my head, I'm here at the gym, and I kept wanting to nod my head, yes, 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 yes. So much truth spat out, spitting some truth. And I wanted to say that something that's been a pet peeve for me in development practice circles is when somebody puts the burden on someone in the circle that they're reading, puts the burden of the loved one's soul state. For example, saying something like, he wants you to forgive him. His soul will not rest until you forgive him. And not that I've heard that phrasing said that way exactly, but I've had the experience of watching a medium bring forward a loved one that the person in the physical world, that the sitter, does not want to hear from because they had a negative experience with that person in the physical world, or that person was cruel to them. And to force this idea that, oh, you must love this soul, you must love your father, to someone who has trauma, an experience of trauma with that soul when they were in the physical world, I think is very rude and very it's very out of bounds. And I think as psychic mediums, we are not clinical experts. We're not licensed therapists or psychologists, but I do believe we have a responsibility to not re-traumatize our sitters and clients and those that we practice with. And it's just I have felt so much sadness hearing things like that from mediums, where they tell someone you must love and forgive this person, or things will not be okay. I personally believe the spirit world understands the traumas we've been through, and in the spirit world that we learn and understand what it was like to feel that trauma that we inflicted on somebody else. And I don't believe that in the physical world we must forgive somebody who has passed in order for their soul to be okay, or for us to get quote unquote good karma coming our way. So that's what your episode brought up for me. And thank you so much for sharing the no BS truth. And it's people like you that keep me wanting to practice my mediumship and develop and continue this as a career. So thank you, Hannah. Lots of love to you. God bless.
Thank you, lovely, lovely Juan. I completely agree. Again, I love all these different takes. What an amazing sort of collaboration we're all coming in with, things where you're listening and you go, yes, this, yes, that. Absolutely. I think the other thing along that kind of line is when you get a spirit through, I'm always very cautious. If, for example, it's like a friend of a friend connection, and then the medium says, well, they want you to go tell your friend that they came through. And I always think, what happens if their friend is a non-believer? What happens if that puts the sitter in a horrible position where they're like, oh my God, I've got to go and tell Kerry her dad comes through, but she said all mediums were frauds. Like, I think it's enough that the spirit has come through. And then, you know, if spirit want you to give that message, the next thing you know, you're talking to Kerry and she will say, I know I said mediumship was a load of rubbish, but I do feel like my dad is with me. And then you can share it. There's this kind of horrible, I'm looking for validation from my mediumship by making you as the sitter work for it, that I find, yeah, I don't really like. And you're exactly right, Juan. I think people can come in and they might want to say sorry, but whenever they come in, whenever it's been something really horrendous, and I know that that soul wants to say sorry for what they did, I always say to the sitter, you don't need to forgive them. I just have to pass on that they say sorry. Because I think that's always an interesting space as the medium. Are you in service to the sitter or the spirit world? Well, it's a bit of both, isn't it? And when you're in service to both, you have to find that balance. But again, I do believe wholeheartedly that spirit always obey free will, people's free will and choice. Free people, they obey free people. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I think sometimes when you're in that vulnerability of being stood in front of a group of people or sitting in a one-on-one and it's not really resonating, it's easy to blame spirit or to change the message from spirit slightly to make it bigger, more impressive, and it's hard. I did a reading the other night in a group scenario where this dad came forward and I've got dad here, he dies around this age, he dies of a brain aneurysm, he doesn't pass straight away, he's a bit worried as he moves into the spirit world, he's very upset because he's a man's man. I can't remember everything I got through. And then once that spirit came through, He wanted to talk about his wife that was still here. And I knew there was something going on with her mentally. I didn't get that it was dementia, but I knew there was something going on and she was needing help. And it was their daughter in the audience. And I knew she was being a bit difficult and I knew she was being hard. But every time I shared a bit of information about his wife and the daughter looking after, I would sort of move to the spirit and be like, okay, what evidence do you want to give me? And he would take me back to that situation. And he kept talking about it again and again and again and again. And in my head, if I'm honest, I kind of thought me, ego Hannah, would prefer a bit more evidence. And he would just keep going, no, I want to talk about this. I need you to know that you're going to need to get a carer in. I need you to know that you're doing enough. I need you to know that I'm with you. Blah, 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 blah. And she took it all. She was crying and she came up to me at the end. And this is such an important lesson. And she said, I'm so glad my dad was able to come through. I told him I needed his help to know what to do about mum. And so all the time that I'd been in my analysis state going, why aren't you giving me any more evidence about you, about your relationship with your daughter? He, in his intelligence, was bringing through exactly what she needed. And if I had decided to be stalwart in that approach and not let him talk about that anymore and say, no, we've covered it, wouldn't that have taken away some of the wonder of that? Because for afterwards, I was like, oh my God, there was me going, oh, this is weird. Why are we stuck in this loop of talking about the same thing? And actually, he was fulfilling a need in his daughter. He was doing exactly what she'd asked him to. So, yeah. I don't know. Is that relevant? Have I just gone down a rabbit hole? I hope it's kind of relevant. I just think it's you're in service. And not in service in the way that people often say when they're sort of destroying themselves with their mediumship, well, I'm in service to the spirit world. But you're in service of doing a good job and being a good representative of the spirits that you speak to and being in alignment and being earnest and being true. And that is all any of us can do. And sometimes that is about being in awkward positions and saying this spirit wants to say sorry when you know the sitter doesn't want to hear from them. But you're right, Juan. It's not about them putting it on the sitter, that it's their job to make it better for that soul in the spirit world. So right. Sorry, I deked off, I think, into a rabbit hole. It made sense at the time, but maybe I've had too much Pepsi Max. There we go. Still got a few questions to get through and last little bits. And then we will be closing season 5 and getting ready for season 6. Hope you've enjoyed it. Catch up with you again soon.